spring break was great and relaxing and restful. I know mine was. It was definitely not the spring break I had been hoping for, but it was still helpful to kind of recharge and get ready for a little bit more of this virtual learning. So, before we get into today's new lesson, I want to just talk to you about the reflection and the review you did last class. The reflection was very helpful. It gave me a lot of really good ideas, so thank you for telling me all of your thoughts on things that I can improve. Also, the review, I know for some of you, was a little bit challenging. What I'm going to be doing is on Wednesday, so whether you have class on Tuesday or Wednesday, it doesn't matter. On Wednesday at 1:30, from 1:30 to 2:30, I'll be holding office hours specifically to look at those 6 questions. So I've posted the answers to Classroom. Go look at how you did. If the answers you got aren't correct, it'd be a great opportunity for you to set an alarm for Wednesday at 1:30 and come see how those problems should have been solved. So now let's get into, now that you know that, we're going to get into our lesson for today, which is a trigonometry introduction. Trigonometry is the study of sides and angles and triangles and how they relate. So far we've just been talking about the sides. Now we're going to talk about both sides and angles. This is a little bit more heavy on vocab, so today's lesson is going to be simple and just introducing the vocabulary and learning how to operate a calculator with this type of stuff. So, we're going to get started. The first vocabulary we have is types of sides. So we have different types of sides in a triangle, specifically in a right triangle. We have the hypotenuse, which is a side, the opposite side, and the adjacent side. Now, the hypotenuse can always be determined regardless of what the angles are. As long as there's a right angle, we know the hypotenuse is going to be opposite that right angle. So, which color is the hypotenuse in this situation? Hopefully by this point we know that the hypotenuse, where that is in this situation, it's going to be the red side. Now, like I said, trigonometry is about the relationship between sides and angles. So we need an angle here for us to determine the opposite and the adjacent side. So I'm going to label this angle right over here as being 40 degrees. Which side, purple or green, because we already know the red side is the hypotenuse, which side is opposite of that 40-degree angle? Good. It is the purple side, is the side that is not touching that angle, is not creating that angle. It's the side opposite of that angle. And now the side, the only one we have left to be the adjacent side, is the green side, because it is touching that angle, it is creating that angle. The red side is also creating the angle, but remember, it's the hypotenuse. It's not the adjacent side. So the hypotenuse always is able to be determined regardless of where the angle is. Now these answers will actually change on us depending on where our angle is. So if I am now, instead of using that 40-degree angle down there, if I instead use this 50-degree angle up here, what are each of those sides going to be? What color is the hypotenuse? Good, hopefully you remembered that that's still going to be red regardless. And now, what side is opposite? And what side is adjacent to that 50-degree angle? So, because now we're dealing with this top angle instead of the 40-degree angle, we're dealing with that angle. The side opposite the 50-degree angle is the green side. And the side adjacent to it is the purple side. So now let's see if we can do that without me talking us through it anymore. We're going to go to some practice. So once again, we see a right triangle. It has that 30-degree angle marked. So I want to determine what is the hypotenuse, what color is the hypotenuse, what color is the side opposite the 30-degree angle, and what color is the side adjacent to that 30-degree angle. So what's the hypotenuse? What's the opposite side of the 30-degree angle? And what is the side adjacent to that 30-degree angle? All right, the hypotenuse is that purple-blue color. The opposite side is the pink side, and the adjacent side is the orange side. Now remember, if you don't remember something, you can always go back and re-watch it, try to listen to my explanation a second time. But this is one of those practice makes perfect kind of things. So now let's move on. Instead of focusing on colors, we're going to get a little bit more math oriented here with some numbers. So each of these sides are now labeled as 3, 4, and 5. That's their lengths. And we have an angle of 36.9 degrees. Forgot my degree symbol, so I'll add that. So what is the measurement of the hypotenuse in this triangle? What is the measurement of the side opposite the 36.9 degree angle? And what is the measurement of the side adjacent to the 36.9 degree angle? Let's see if we got it right. The hypotenuse is the side that is measured 5, the opposite side is the side that is a measurement of 3, and the adjacent side is the side that has a measurement of 4. Hopefully you got those. If not, you can watch this again. Maybe it'll click when you look at it the second time. All right? So, like I said, we're going to keep this short and sweet, introduce just some few things here and there. Before we move on to the calculator, I'm going to tell you a few more vocab terms. So, trigonometry, we're going to use the word sine, the inverse of sine. So we don't know what these words mean yet or how they get calculated, but they're 2 words. We also have cosine, inverse of cosine, tangent, and inverse of tangent. And each of these on a calculator have a shortcut name. So instead of being called sine, S-I-N-E, I'll write this in a different color in our nice, let's go with red. So sine is going to actually be on a calculator just S-I-N. The inverse of sine is going to be S-I-N to the power of -1. Cosine is going to be shortened to just C-O-S. That's short for cosine. The inverse of cosine is going to be C-O-S to the power of -1. Tangent is going to be shortened to those first 3 letters as well as T-A-N. And inverse of tangent is going to be T-A-N to the power of -1. So some of you might have been using your phone's calculators. You might have seen these before, but what I want us to do is to us all be using the same calculator so we make sure we know what's going on. So I'm going to have you open up a second tab, and we're going to go to the website desmos.com/scientific. So desmos.com/scientific. Once you press go, you'll be brought to this website. We've used Desmos in the past, but this is just their basic scientific calculator. And if you look, you'll see sine is right there, that sine shortcut, the cosine shortcut, and the tangent shortcut. So let's go on a little tour of this calculator. We also see a radical symbol in that same set of buttons. So if you wanted to figure out the decimal version of square root of 13, you just type that in. It gives you the square root decimal form right there. You can just press clear all. If you wanted to find the decimal version of, let's say, 13 square root of 2, you just type it in and it shows you there. Let's say for some reason you wanted to use that number and remember it, you can press that blue enter button so it will save your progress, and you can say, oh, I now know that at 18 point, I'll round it to the nearest thousandth, so 3, 8, and then 4 rounds up because there's a 7, so 385. Let's say I wanted to multiply that number by 2 for whatever reason. And then it gives you the answer right there. All right. So there's a lot of cool things. There's that button right next to where it says 36.77. It's a button that kind of looks like a fraction. If you click that, it will turn it into its reduced fraction form, which could be helpful. All right, so we're gonna press clear. I'm gonna just press clear all again, just so it's a brand new space. So let's look at a couple more things. So you'll notice that this is underlined as main. There is this ABC function that gives you a typewriter account, but we don't need that for anything. Then there's something that has the letters FUNC, and that's where you'll find those shortcuts of the inverse of sine, inverse of cosine, and inverse of tangent. That's where those are hiding. So what I just want to do, I know we haven't learned what those terms mean yet. I just want to make sure we know how to use the calculator. So for the last little bit of class, I'm just going to have you round these decimals that I'm asking you to do to the nearest, let's go with nearest thousandth. So those 3 decimal places. So let's start with some square roots first. Let's look, what is the decimal version of the square root of 5 rounded to the nearest thousandth? Square root of 5 rounded to the nearest thousandth would be 2.236. Okay, now clear that. What is the value of, let's go with 5, the decimal version of 5 square root of 8. All right, the decimal version of 5 square root of 8, so calculate that and round that number to the nearest thousandth. So then if you rounded that to the nearest thousandth, you get 14.142. Okay, so that's a really good resources for using square roots, which I know I should have showed this to you a while ago. I just realized how user-friendly it was. So here's a new resource for you. Now let's try to calculate some sine, cosines, and tangents. If you want to find the cosine of 36, for example, you would just press cosine and type in 36, and it will give you the decimal version. So the decimal version of that rounded to the nearest thousandth would be 0.809. And like I said, we're going to learn about what those calculations mean and why they're helpful for trigonometry, but today is just about learning how to use the calculator. Okay, so now I want you to find the tangent of 32, rounded to the nearest thousandth. Tongue twister. Tangent of 32 equals 0.624. I'm sorry, not 0, it's 0.625 because there's an 8 after that 4, so you round up. All right, now let's do a sine one. What's the sine of 44? Sine of 44 rounded to the nearest thousandth is 0.695. Okay, so now let's just do a couple inverse calculations. So I'll just show you some. We're going to do the inverse sine. So you have to go to that function button. So you go from main to function to get inverse sine. And then to type the numbers, you have to go back to main. And we'll go with 0.75. 0.75, the inverse sine of that is going to be 48.590, is rounded to the nearest thousandth. All right, now let's try to do the inverse cosine of 0.75. What do you get for the inverse cosine? Go back to that function tab. So inverse of cosine of 0.75 is 41.40. Oh, really? 410, because you would round up. So 41.410. All right, and last but not least, we're going to find the inverse tangent. So inverse tangent, let's go of 1.2. And when you do the inverse tangent of 1.2, you get 50.194. So if you want to play around with this calculator a little more, look at the different functions, see how that can be helpful. We're going to be using them in upcoming lessons, so I hope that this made sense. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And remember that on Wednesday at 1:30, I will be available for office hours to review those review questions. So please go back, look at your problems that you answered, look at my answers, see if you got them right. If you got a lot wrong, it'd be a great opportunity to join those office hours. Remember, this time there's a lot of independence going on right now. It is your responsibility to check in. If you think you need help, make sure you're asking for it. So that's a great opportunity where I'll be there for you. So just reach out if you need it. Have a great day.